You've been told if you keep your head down, work hard, and prove yourself, recognition, promotions, and opportunities will come. But let's be honest, that's just not true. This is Lead Without Limits, a podcast for professionals in multifamily and beyond who are ready to stop second-guessing themselves. Because leadership isn't just about titles or tactical skills. Yes, we'll cover those here, but real leadership starts from within. It's about changing the beliefs and behaviors that have kept you playing small and rewiring the thought patterns holding you back. I'm Shanenn Bryant, a confidence and pattern expert, and this is the space where we talk real growth, real change, and maybe have a little workday humor along the way. This episode is brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network, delivering the latest news, ideas, and inspiration across the multifamily sector. If you're ready to lead without fear, lead without doubt, and lead without limits, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Welcome back to Lead Without Limits. I'm Shanenn Bryant, and today we're diving into the second part of the series on the F word, feedback. Last week in part one, we talked about how to take feedback, how to receive it without spiraling, how to receive it in a way that doesn't totally wreck your confidence or send you into a shame spiral. So if you haven't listened to that episode yet, definitely go back, check it out. You can listen to them in any order, but they definitely go hand in hand. And this week, we're flipping the script. We're looking at the other side of the coin. We're talking about giving feedback. So do you know how to give feedback that inspires people instead of sparking that defensiveness? Are you giving feedback that builds trust or that's shutting people down? And most often, we're only giving feedback when something either really went well or really went wrong, or when we're forced to, or at annual review time. And in all of those scenarios, it never feels good to either person. It feels ick. It feels uncomfortable. And if those are the only times that you're giving feedback and practicing that, you're probably not doing it very well. And the best leaders, they're not waiting for that annual review. They're creating real-time feedback loops that are actually driving performance, that is really building trust with their team members and is in the best interest of helping them grow. Feedback accelerates growth, or at least when you do it well, it will. So why does feedback feel so hard? Partly, we want to be liked. We fear conflict. We're usually trying to be nice. But the biggest reason that it feels so hard or so uncomfortable is because we've never really been taught how to do it. We've just been told that we have to give it, or that we should give it, or it's annual review time. And so we have to have these conversations. So today I'm going to talk and share the do's and don'ts about giving feedback and the 3 types of feedback we should be giving. So let's start with the not to do when giving feedback. It's really a nuanced skill, and even the well-intended efforts can misfire if not approached thoughtfully. Here are some common, backed by research, mistakes to avoid when you're giving feedback. And then the first one, this is why I put it at the top. It's really a hot button for me, is this whole feedback sandwich that we have been taught for the longest time. The feedback sandwich is like positive feedback followed by criticism, ending with positive feedback. It's a popular method. It's intended to cush the impact of the criticism, but studies show, I've witnessed it myself, it's completely counterproductive. And the reason that this is not a good approach, no matter how long you've heard, give them the S sandwich, as we've heard, give them the shit sandwich. This approach, it really dilutes the critical message. It dilutes the negative message that you're sending, and it dilutes the positive message that you're sending. And that leads the person to feel confused, and it definitely is not effective. It diminishes the effectiveness of you working yourself up to give the feedback and them spending time to listen to your feedback. Most people have a hard time accepting or absorbing a compliment, which I didn't talk so much about that in part 1. I probably should have when I was talking about receiving feedback, because that one was mostly focused on like how to handle constructive feedback. So maybe I'll do a whole episode on how you accept a compliment. But if most people have a hard time accepting a compliment and correctly processing constructive feedback, the last thing you want to do is give them a sandwich of both of them together at once. That is an absolute recipe for disaster. That is a hard to swallow, nasty sardine and mayo sandwich that you're serving up to someone. It's not going to go down well. So that's maybe my biggest pet peeve when it comes to feedback. Do not do the sandwich despite what you've heard. The second, don't delay the conversation. Let's talk about something that a lot of leaders do, not because they're bad leaders, but because they're human. The majority of us put off tough conversations. At least that's maybe our default. And I get it. You don't want to hurt someone's feelings. You're trying to be kind. You don't want to deal with the potential pushback or the awkwardness, or you might feel like there's going to be retaliation in some way. So you wait. Maybe you tell yourself like, I'll bring it up next week, or I'll see if it gets better on its own. Or, if they're dealing with a lot right now, this isn't the best time. But here's what happens when we delay. The behavior doesn't stop. It continues. And that continued behavior can keep hurting the team. It affects morale, it slows progress, and it chips away at performance, especially if other people are having to pick up the slack or feeling frustrated by it. So if this person is doing something, and it usually is, affecting the rest of the team, now you've got a whole team of problems versus just this one thing that you may need to address with this person. It really sends this unspoken message that, what's happening is either okay or it's not that big of a deal. And that's when resentment can set in and it can build, not just from you, but from the rest of the team who does see what's going on. They absolutely are aware that this person isn't holding up their end of the deal or having to do the same things that they are. It also makes it harder to bring up later. The longer you wait, the weirder it feels. And you start like questioning, is this still worth bringing up? Or is this going to seem like it's sort of out of left field now? And we've probably experienced this before, especially if you've had, maybe not a close friend or someone like, oh, I need to call and apologize to that person, or I haven't been as good lately about checking in with this person. And it's like the longer you wait, the more you're like, ugh, okay, it would be weird if I do it now. It's the same thing. So instead of, having a direct conversation, you're stuck with this lingering tension, like, what should I do? Now it feels weird. And this is a big one too. It erodes trust. When people don't get feedback, they either assume that they're doing fine, like everything's okay, or worse, they sense that something's off, but they don't know what. And that drives anxiety and distance. And the moment you finally do bring it up, then they can kind of feel blindsided. Like, why didn't you just tell me this earlier? Like, why are you bringing it up now? How long have they been thinking about this? That's the worst. Like, oh my gosh, this happened 2 weeks ago and you've been thinking about that. So trust isn't just built in the big moments. It's built in the timing of how you communicate. And when feedback is delayed for too long, then it feels less honest. Even if your intention was kindness, it can come across like you weren't being real with them. Now, let me say this too. It's okay to prepare. I love this statement, prepare, not procrastinate. So you don't have to blurt it out in the moment. In fact, that's never really a good thing to do, especially if the situation is sensitive or the person tends to be maybe a little bit reactive. It's smart if you want to take some time and collect your thoughts and figure out the right words and maybe even talk it out with someone that you trust that's not involved in that situation. But there's a difference between taking time to prepare and putting it off out of fear. So, prepare, not procrastinate. So we want to make sure that we're aiming for like timely, not rushed, intentional. We're not avoiding it. If it happened 2 weeks ago and you're just now circling back to it, okay. But you might want to say, hey, I've been sitting with this for a while because I was trying to think of the best way to bring it up and have a helpful, healthy conversation about it. This kind of honesty is going to help build trust, but we want to try to stick with as timely a feedback as absolutely possible. So think about it like this. If you wait until after that business dinner meeting with me to tell me that I have spinach in my teeth, you are not my friend. You do not have my best interest at heart. We're not on the same team. I'm just saying. In that situation, you send me a text, you kick me under the table, tell me to check my phone, you write that on a napkin, give me hand signals, but tell me as soon as possible without embarrassing me, which that actually leads to the next don't when giving feedback, and that is avoiding public criticism. One of my core principles when it comes to feedback, I call it praise in public, coach in confidence. So what does that mean? It means when someone does something well, let it be known, celebrate it, acknowledge it where everybody else can hear. That kind of praise, it only, not only builds belief in that individual, but it sets the tone for the whole team. It says like, this is what good looks like. And it goes so much further than constructive feedback, even though sometimes constructive feedback, of course, is necessary. But when we can, shout it, praise it, all of that in public, that's great. But when we do have the constructive feedback, that should happen in private. People don't grow when they feel exposed or embarrassed. They grow when they feel safe. So when you coach someone in confidence. It lets them know, hey, I care about you and I am taking the time to invest in you to give you this feedback. And I'm certainly not here to make you feel bad about it. So praise in public, coach in confidence. Number 4 on the don't list, don't focus on personality traits, focus on behavior. One of the fastest ways to make feedback feel like an attack is when you're not focused on the behavior. Calling out somebody's personality instead of the behavior. So if you're saying things like, you're too emotional, whether that means like they get too angry or, they tear up in hard conversations. If you're saying things like you don't care about the details, you're difficult to work with, you're not a team player, you're not giving feedback in that moment. Like they're hearing judgment about who they are, and it's not going to go over well. The second that somebody feels like they're a problem, they're done listening. They're defensive. They're in shame. And they might, nod along, but instantly that wall is up. They're not going to hear what you're saying. And quite frankly, you're not really solving the real problem. That kind of feedback is really going to shut someone down and not do the thing it's meant to do. So instead, we have to get specific about the behavior and how that how that is showing up and how it's affecting the team or performance or production, whatever the situation is. when we address the behavior, then that gives somebody something they can actually do. Like they can actually do something about that. So instead of saying some of those things like, you're lazy, you're not doing these things, you can say, I've noticed that your reports are coming in late and we're missing opportunities to review them properly before the deadline. If you do, like if somebody is showing emotions and that's the behavior, they're either getting angry or they're shutting down, instead of telling them, hey, you're too emotional, you can say things like, in our last meeting, your tone got really elevated and you seemed to shut down for the rest of the conversation. Is there something happening for you? Let's talk about it. So if you are focused on personality traits, people are going to feel labeled and boxed in, and it's going to create shame instead of insight. And that shame isn't going to lead them to change. Like it's going to shut them down. They're going to feel resentful. They're going to burn out. And most likely it's going to cause them to leave their manager and find somewhere else to go. But when you focus on what you saw, what it impacted, and what you'd like to see instead, you're giving them a path forward. You're giving them something to hold on to and to anchor in. You're giving them feedback that's actually useful. Okay, so those were some of the big don'ts. So what about the do's? There are 3 types of feedback that we should be giving. The first one is appreciative feedback. So what is appreciative feedback? This is affirming what's working well. It reinforces positive behaviors and those contributions that you want to see more of. So a good time to use this appreciative feedback is when someone nails it, like when they're nailing a difficult task, they're going above and beyond. This is when you want to call that out. If you want to recognize consistency or quiet leadership that maybe, something that they did that might have otherwise went unnoticed, when you want to boost morale, motivation, confidence, especially during important times like change and uncertainty and high stress, this is a great time to bring this type of feedback in. And I mean, this works not just with your teams. This, again, a lot of these leadership skills, of course, they're beneficial in the workplace, but also at home. If I want my husband to do something again, I'm going to praise when he does it. Like, oh, you made the bed. I love it when it's made first thing in the morning. It's so strange how it starts your day off in a positive direction. I'm going to say something like that. And it works both ways because he can say, I can tell you've been really paying attention when you back out of the garage. You haven't ran over the landscape lights recently. It goes both ways. This is not totally off topic, but maybe a little bit. But it reminds me of something that just happened a couple months ago. Where we live, the water company is still like old time. You can't go pay the water bill online. You have to actually drive it to the building and hand it to them. So my husband and I, we were switching some things up. I have been paying the water bill since we lived here for the 9 years that we've lived here. And that was one I was like, hey, why don't you take this one? Because he's in and out more and he passes by there more often than I do. But you've got to write the good old fashioned check and take it up there. The second month of him doing it, I was working at home and I see they come and put some tag on our door. And so I go look and, we can relate in multifamily the old years ago when you were able to put that big red sticker on somebody's door who didn't pay their rent. But this is what they put for our water bill. So when my husband got home, I was like, hey, did you not pay the water bill this month? And he was like, oh my gosh, I'm pretty sure. Let me go look. So he gets out his check and we look, and sure enough, it was March and, March 19th when he wrote the check. So I was like, okay, well, maybe did you put it in the Dropbox? No, I handed it directly to her. So, okay, I'll call tomorrow. So I go up there and she's like, we don't have it. We did not receive the payment for this month. So my husband gets home that night. We start going through it and realize he wrote it for the wrong month. When he paid February's, he wrote March instead. So it looked like he paid March, but it was actually for February. So instead of $219, which is what it was supposed to be when he paid it in February, he wrote $319, which made us think that he had paid it for March. It reminded me, I don't know if you watch, like I do, old reruns of things. Everybody Loves Raymond, where Deborah gets upset with Raymond because she is convinced that he does stuff wrong, so he never has to do it again. Like he didn't know how, he put diapers on the kids wrong, so he never had to do diapers again, all of this stuff. And I felt like that's what my husband did. Like, how did you do that wrong? It must be, hey, you just don't want to do it again. So long story to say, we want to praise when things are done right. It has way more effect than it does when we have to correct something that isn't going well. So getting back to appreciative feedback, it really builds belief in people. It tells people like, this is what you're doing well, keep going, keep doing it here. And when people know what's working, they're more likely to repeat it. It's also a powerful prevention tool. People who feel valued are less likely to disengage or burn out. And it works. I'm always thinking about the landscape lights when I back out of the driveway because he praised that. Hey, I noticed you haven't ran over him lately. So it's in my mind. It all works. Okay. The second type of feedback we should be giving is developmental feedback. This one is all about growth over perfection. It doesn't it doesn't point out what's wrong. It points to what's next. It helps someone to see what's possible for them, where they can stretch, and how to really close the gap between where they are now and where they want to be or where they could be. And it isn't about fixing people. It's like fueling them, fueling their evolution, so to speak. And here's what is absolutely shifting in today's workplace. The younger workforce, especially Gen Z, they are not wanting those annual reviews or performance ratings. They're asking like, how am I doing right now? What is next for me? Where can I grow? They want that real-time, personalized coaching style feedback. And honestly, that benefits everyone. And I wouldn't even narrow it down to this generation. I think as humans, any age, we all want to know how we're doing. And most of us want to do a good job. So if you're only giving feedback to someone when things go wrong or when it's time for a performance review, we're really missing the most powerful lever that you've got. This should be weaved into your one-on-one meetings, a 90-second moment where you're giving feedback or talking about it or, talking about their next step, their next career move. That changes everything. Give them some feedback. So, when someone's performing well, but you can see a stretch zone for them or something that they haven't quite seen in themselves, that's amazing. So when you notice a strength that's under leveraged during some coaching style check-ins, even informal ones, you can ask them like, where do you want to go this quarter? Where do you want to grow? This is a perfect setup for developmental feedback. Another time to use it is, when they're fine in their skill, but there's a chance for them to become really great at it. That's when you want to use this developmental feedback. It shifts the focus from what you did to what you're becoming or what that potential is. It says, I see more in you. You're capable of more, and I'm going to support you and give you the resources that you need as you stretch into this new place. It's one of the most affirming kinds of feedback a leader can give because, again, it communicates belief. And if you do it right, it builds not just the skill, but it's going to build confidence in that person. It turns that imposter syndrome into leadership identity. They start to see themselves in that role through your eyes. And then they'll often try to rise up to meet that vision. So make it a practice, incorporate it into development plans by adding, that regular prompt, like, what skill do you want to be known for in 6 months from now? What behaviors do you want to be known for? What's an area that you can see yourself in, or something, an area that you feel like you're ready for more? And how can I support you to get there? This kind of feedback builds that internal motivation, and again, lets them see themselves through your eyes and what you see for them. Moving on to the last type of feedback that we should be giving is redirective feedback. Redirective feedback is your moment to course correct. You're bringing attention to a behavior that is out of alignment with either the role, the team, the culture, like whatever those expectations are. And you're doing it with the belief that the person can realign. Like you're doing it with the intent to get them realigned, not just bring up a problem or bring up a concern. Like the focus should be, I think this person can get back on track. Here's the thing though, with this feedback, most of the time, the misalignment might be on us as managers. So redirective feedback often points out something someone else needs to change, but the moment that they're off track, but before we bring it up to them, we need to pause and ask ourselves, did I clearly communicate what the expectations were, both in terms of performance and behavior? Did I spend time making sure that they understood not just what to do, but how to show up while they're doing it? Have you sat down with them, actually yourself sat down with them and said, and talked through what great looks like in this role, what success looks like in the role? Because what happens too often is we give somebody a job description and they only see it when we offer them the position. And then we never revisit it again. They got it once, they read it once, that's it. A lot of times we assume that they just know what's expected, that, they've read it in the handbook somewhere as part of their onboarding process. And we get frustrated when they fall short, but we never gave them a clear picture of the target. You can't redirect what you haven't clearly stated. And even if the expectations were shared early on, you gave them the job description, there was a form that told them, or it is on page 19 of the HR handbook, what the behavior expectations are. Even if the expectations were shared early on, the real breakdown often comes in our fail to reinforce them and review them consistently. And then when something goes sideways, we question, we feel blindsided, they feel blindsided, like, what the heck? We don't check in and make sure that it's clear and understood. So before you jump into the redirective feedback, take ownership as a leader. Did I set them up for success? Have I been clear on the expectations, both from performance and behavior? Have I created space for questions or feedback? And do I know for certain that they've been given the information and they understand it? This is a shared responsibility. Did we sit down with them and talk through what behaviors are expected? Things like communication style, collaboration, follow through. How do we show up in meetings? So when someone goes off track, the first step isn't always feedback. Sometimes it's clarification. Same thing for performance expectations. What does done well look like? How are outcomes measured? What happens when we don't meet those goals? So start there. before we go into this type of feedback, and make sure that they aren't failing at something they didn't even know was an expectation. And make sure that you can 100% feel certain and confident that you provided them with the information and you did your best to set them up for success. And if you've done those things, then redirective feedback is in order. And here is how it could and should be used. When a behavior is having a negative ripple effect on the team, the work, the relationship, when something needs shifted immediately, not 6 months from now. And it's probably going to be one of the hardest kinds of feedback to give because it does feel personal. But it's also the most powerful when it comes to building accountability and protecting your culture. It says, I care enough to tell you the truth. I believe that you can do better, and I'm here to help you get there. And maybe you do even have to explain, hey, maybe I wasn't clear about them. So let's fresh start. Here are all the expectations, and we go from there. That's how I can help you. When you avoid this redirective feedback, yes, you're protecting your comfort, but you're sacrificing your team, your team's trust. You are letting someone repeat a behavior that's not only holding them back, but then usually the team is taking the brunt of it. So this is where leadership requires both courage and compassion. And this is a hard one. Here are some examples that I pulled up to just give you an idea. So instead of saying you missed the deadline again, you can say something like, we've missed 2 key deadlines this month and it's affecting how the team delivers on their end. What's been getting in the way? Let's figure out how we can prevent this from becoming a pattern. Or instead of like you're being rude to the clients, you can say, the tone of your last client email came across sharper than maybe what you intended. Let's go over it together and talk about how we want to sound when we're representing the team. So just, you can say it in different ways that doesn't make them feel on the defense or that they've completely done something, horrific, but also being able to show them, hey, I do care about you. Yes, this is a problem and I care about you and I care about your performance and I want everyone to do well. That's why I'm giving you this feedback. And if your organization does development plans, hopefully you're having regular one-on-ones. This is also another time that you can go over those. Ask them, is there anything standing in your way from upholding the expectations? Or do you feel the expectations have changed? And if so, let's talk about that. The more you normalize these conversations, the less redirective feedback is going to feel like you're in trouble or I caught you doing something wrong. So if you want high performing, values aligned teams, redirect early, redirect clearly, and always, coach in confidence. So the power move for this week is to pick one of these 3 types of feedback and try it out on a team member. And love to hear how it went or what you tried. And if you found this episode helpful in any way, please leave a review. It helps people to discover the podcast and lets them know that there is some value in it. So hopefully this has helped you to lead without fear, lead without doubt, and lead without limits. See you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Lead Without Limits and investing in what matters, you. If you found this episode valuable, please share it with a friend or colleague who might benefit as well. This podcast is brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network, your trusted source for stories, trends, and insights in multifamily living. I hope this moved you one step closer to lead without fear, lead without doubt, and lead without limits.